Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Legacy's Journey, where we talk about creating what outlives you. I'm your host, Cameron Williams, owner of Kinley Consulting, where we focus on strategic financial growth for marketing agencies so that they can live the dream life they deserve and not be a slave to their business. And we do that through accounting, CFO services, and, of course, some tax strategy. Now, this is season 2. And I told y'all we're going to do a big, we're going to get the people that are already right there at that $1 million mark or have already surpassed it, right? So I had to put out some feelers, you know what I'm saying? I had to tap into my network. Like, y'all, tell me some of these people, introduce me to them. Let's get them on the podcast. And one person popped up, and I knew this person because we talked in the past before, and I know this person has multiple businesses. I know they've been doing it for a while in the Midwest area, if I'm remembering correct. And of course, y'all can't see this part yet, but see, they got Funko Pops, which tells me they have a life outside of business and other concerns. So, without further ado, you know what, better yet, I'm going to let him introduce himself because he's going to tee this up way better. But welcome to the podcast. Tell us, name of the businesses, because I know it's more than one, and how long you've been in the game and what they do, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, well, my name is Garrett Atkins, and one thing you were wrong about already is just because I had Funko Pops right there does not mean I have a life. In fact, gaming is also another business I have, so there is no life. I've eliminated any trace of a life that I once had when I did that. That said, my digital marketing agency was the first business I started, and it's called VIE Media, VIE Media. And it's a digital marketing agency that focuses on providing a return on investment through search engine optimization, web page design and development, Google pay-per-click and media buying. We're a Google partner with Google, one of the, I think, the highest tier partner you can be with them. And I actually got to the point with my digital marketing agency where I actually retired as the CEO back on October 4th of 2023. I no longer lead the digital marketing agency. So, surprise, you actually had the wrong guy on the show. I'm just a meager owner of a digital marketing agency now, no longer a C-level executive. And
which is important, by the way, because we can jump into that, but keep going.
Yeah, of course. Most people don't ever even think to do that, let alone get there. So that's one topic of discussion. But I started a digital marketing agency back in 2016, and I thought about it in 2015 with the whole purpose of wanting to use it as a catalyst to start other businesses for myself, for my friends, family, people I meet along the way. And it took from 2016 to 2019 to actually use it to start another business. The second business I started was in 2019 called Half Coast Studios, because we're in the Midwest between both coasts. And what we do is podcast recording and distribution, music recording and distribution, audiobook recording and distribution, and just about anything else that can be recorded in a studio, including corporate videos. And then, you know, I realized in 2019 that everyone and their mom was starting a podcast. I mean, I'm on a podcast right now. I've been on a lot of podcasts since 2019. That's when they really took off as a form of content that entrepreneurs make. It's almost like a pillar of every digital marketer, every entrepreneur in the modern age under 40 entrepreneur probably has a podcast if they're doing $1 million plus, which is odd, honestly, but that is something I have founded, except for those real estate guys. They don't talk to anyone. That said, I then utilized Half Coast Studios, started in 2019, and VIE Media, which I started in 2016. I leveraged both of those as a catalyst to then, 2 years after I started Half Coast Studios, so in 2021, to start a holding company. We were doing really good advertising for construction companies. So I'm talking roofing, insulation, heating and cooling, flooring, you name it, just the trades. And so I said, guys, why don't we start our own construction companies? Why don't we make even more money off of our ability to generate leads for this field of work? And so we started. I went to my buddy Evan. I said, Evan, what is the one job he's a laborer. He's been working as a laborer for his family's business for many years at this point. And I said, what is the one job you do the most on the side? Not for your day job, but on the side. And he said, I do a lot of insulation. I'll go to Home Depot. I'll rent an insulation machine. I'll charge someone $1,500 and pump insulation into their attic. And I said, okay. And then I went to my, director of search marketing, and I said, hey, why don't you look in insulation and see if it's oversaturated, undersaturated, or if it's something we can capitalize on. Excuse me. It was something we could capitalize on, he said. So we started West County Insulation, our first contracting company, underneath our holding company, Mogul Holdings. And that kind of started, that was the beginning of the next era of my life, where we started doing mergers and acquisitions and starting contracting companies of all shapes and sizes. I mean, we were involved with possible acquisition of up to a $25 million a year company. And then, we've gone so far as to start one from scratch again after West County Insulation, called St. Louis Demolition Company, which ranks really well for demolition here in St. Louis, along with West County Insulation, of course. And I think we're at 4 or 5 contracting companies here in St. Louis that are slowly expanding the multiple crews. And then it was about 2.5 years ago. So 2012, probably, 2.5 years ago, and 1 year after I started the contracting holding company, that I started getting unhappy. Because business was going well. I had started a digital marketing company. I used it to start a new company in 2019. I used it again to start multiple companies within the same vertical that we're good at marketing with, via media. And I helped my friends, helped some family, and and I started a podcast, St. Louis Podcast, which I don't host anymore. I just own it. My president at Vi Media uses it as a business development tool now, but I used to host it. And so I did everything I set out to do, but I love video games. So I like a lot, actually. That's why this room looks like this, and you guys can only see part of it. It's disgusting over there in a good way. And so what I did is I started a video game journalism outlet, where we have currently between 15 to 40 million people viewing our content a month off just one of our video game brands. And we have 5 video game brands, one for Xbox, one for PlayStation, one for Nintendo, one for all platforms, and then one for patch notes and PC, otherwise known as Steam, which is the biggest gaming platform on PC. But I won't dive too deep into that unless asked about it. But and so that's kind of everything I've done up to this point. And then back on October 4th of 2023, I had been working on the gaming thing long enough to where I had finally, and I got Vi Media to the point finally where I got the step down and appoint a new CEO. That involved a merger / acquisition of sorts. I had to find someone that when I asked them the question, hey, where do you want to be in 10 to 15 years? The answer had to be, I want to own the biggest and baddest marketing agency in the fucking world. And so I found someone where that was their answer. You ask me, where do you want to be in 10 to 15 years before I stopped working at Vi Media? It was never, I want to own and run the biggest and baddest marketing agency in the world. It was always, using Vi Media, my digital marketing agency, as a tool to get to my goals. And it was never about money. Money was only ever a byproduct of my goals, which I think is an extremely important and underrated facet of entrepreneurship. What your goals are. It's okay to care about money. It's okay to have a monetary goal in mind. But in fact, you have to have a monetary goal in mind, in my opinion, if you want to reach a goal. But it can't be the end-all, be-all reasoning. But that's kind of my journey. I've done a lot of writing. I like writing. Played a lot of video games. When I said I got unhappy because I was focusing so much on building a business for, 7 years when October hit. But when I got unhappy and started feeling unhappy about 2.5 years ago, only 5 years at that time, I had realized I wasn't doing what I wanted to do for a living, which was to work in games. Growing up, I wanted to work in video game journalism. I wanted to work at IGN. Now, of course, 1 million people apply to IGN a year. IGN's in San Francisco. Journalists get paid $60,000 to $80,000 a year if they're lucky. The math doesn't add up there. So being an entrepreneur, I started my own brand. And that's when I started. It was about 2.5 years ago. But I had to do that on the side for 2.5 years until I went full time in October. And that's where I'm at now. And there's one other business. I have a call center in St. Lucia, southeast of Puerto Rico. We use that not only for our businesses, it does cold calling for Vi Media, but we also use it for our clients, a lot of digital marketing agencies. And honestly, one of the best takeaways for a digital marketing agency is right here. All of you have heard of one of the biggest problems is that even if you're good at generating leads, which most digital marketing agencies aren't even doing that well, but let's say you're one of the few agencies that are doing that well, then the problem you're running into is your shit client cannot get these leads fielded properly. They don't do follow-up calls on the leads. They don't answer the calls. They don't call them at all. They think form fills are trash and they'd rather have a live transfer or something like that. They're just not treating the leads right. We actually got so fed up with it that we ended up finding a call center that we now use as part of our lead generation service. So when we generate leads for a client, we're actually fielding those leads on the client's behalf and charging for that service too. So we're making more money. We're making our clients more money. And everyone's happier, and it results in longer term relationships and better results. It's a win-win. And when you should see the look on their faces when you're the first agency they've ever worked with, where like, oh my God, you actually answer the phone calls for the leads you generate and follow up with them at least 11 times before burning the lead or putting them in an email chain. That's something that I have yet to run into a client who's had that kind of service before. But that's where I'm at now, Cameron.
Okay. Like I said, I knew I wasn't going to be able to team up like that. So yeah, this man just did his own 10-minute intro. So
sorry about that.
What I'm saying. I knew I couldn't say it better than you. So hey, all right. You gave us plenty of ammo for this episode. So let's go back and let's start chopping up different pieces. All right. So let's go back to the marketing agency. Now you say that now you are just the owner and you're no longer the day-to-day CEO. Now you already know some people are going to be like, oh, I'm a business owner too. Break it down for them, the difference between being an owner versus being in the business as the CEO, because some people,
Yeah. So I think there's a 3-step process, at least here, maybe even 4. You start a business. Let's say you start it by yourself. You don't get funding. You bootstrap it like most digital marketing CEOs do. Or let's say you raise funding. The first thing you got to do is not be a solopreneur, hire someone, right? That's probably the hardest step. I forget the statistic, but I believe it's 92% of business owners never hire an employee. 92%. So if you have an employee, or it's 92%, don't hire more than one of the two statistics. Regardless, if you're in that small 8%, congrats, you now have the ability to complete the first step, which is become a manager of sorts. Not a CEO, in my opinion, even though you can put whatever you want on a business card, but a manager, a leader. After you become a leader, you hire more team members, you bring on more clients. Let's say you have 5, 6, 7 people on your team. Now you have the opportunity to become a CEO. And there's a big difference between being a leader and being a CEO, both of which need to occur in order for you to one day be an owner if you don't want to do digital marketing for the rest of your life, or if you don't have an exit plan to sell it, which right now, raising capital or selling companies is very difficult unless you have an AI company, because the future is very unclear in the VC world. So that said, one sec, there we go. That said, whenever you finally become a leader of a small group of people, by earning the respect, by leading from the front, by being good on a fundamental level of at least some of the things that your business does. You don't have to be the best. And in fact, if you're a good CEO, you're not the best at all of these different roles. Your employees are the best at all of these different roles. They're the ones who are the experts, and you're going to them asking them questions all the time. Just like I went to Zach Dixon, my director of search marketing, and asked him, hey, should we get into insulation? Is this an undersaturated or oversaturated market? Once you find yourself going to your team coming to you with questions, but 2, also going to your team for questions and then being able to help direct your vision. You're the director, but they're part of the cast, kind of helping make sure that what your vision is comes to fruition through their actions. That is what allows you to be a CEO when you're working on large business development, when you're working on mergers and acquisitions, when you're working on processes if you don't have a COO, when you get a COO and you're helping direct them on what processes need to be built out. But I would say that for the first probably 6 of the 7 years, I didn't even contemplate the fact that I could be an owner and that the CEO wasn't like the end. Everyone has such a hard time actually becoming the CEO of their own business. They don't even think about the fact that they don't have to do it forever. 1, you can exit. But 2, if you don't want to exit like me and it's part of your long term, like to me, if I got rid of Vine Media, there is 8 other businesses that would fail as a result of me selling Vine Media. Like, it's something that's not even an option for me. The employees that I have at Vine Media will change as marketing and advertising changes, but Vine Media will exist if I want my other businesses to exist until the day they have their own in-house marketing teams, which is something they will eventually have. And then things will change a little. But here, let me turn off the sound real quick, Cameron. There we go. That said, about a year and a half ago, I sat down and I was sitting in my basement at home, just contemplating how the hell do I get into the video game industry when I have Vine Media to run. It's not going to be able to survive without me. And most small businesses would not survive without their CEO, at least good ones. But good ones and bad ones. This is a double-edged sword. If your business wouldn't survive with you, then you can't be an owner. But if your business could easily survive without you, then you're probably not fulfilling a great role. So that said, after becoming the CEO of your business, I think sitting down, taking stock of what it is you do, what void you fill, and then making sure you find someone. It doesn't have to be a person identical to yourself. I'm a DC on the disc test. I'm less than 1% of the population. The CEO that ended up taking over is a DI, someone who's much better with people, much more likable, but still a leader and very driven and self-starter. and can generate his own vision. He doesn't have to run off of someone else's vision, which most people do inherently have to run off someone else's vision. Once you find that person trying to get the business financials, and this is why it's important to have someone like Cameron and an accountant in place, is to try to figure out the right mathematical equation for removing yourself from the business, still giving yourself a paycheck, and paying a CEO the correct amount of money. Doing that mathematical equation, and then also having the business set up to where preferably your digital marketing agency can be used as a tool to grow another business, your next venture, that thing you really want to do. Because maybe you started your digital marketing agency when you were 23 and a half like me, and you still didn't know what you wanted out of the world. Those are the math problems that need to be solved if you really want to take it to the next level after you move on from CEO to owner. And CEO isn't the baddest thing in most badass thing in the world, in my opinion. I mean, you have your Mark Zuckerbergs, your Elon Musks, your Jack Dorseys before he left Twitter, and all of these wonderful CEOs out there. However, most of the time on the small to medium-sized business scale, the most badass people I know are not the CEO of their company. They are the owners of a company or companies, and they spend their days recruiting people for their companies, working on some bigger deals, working on mergers and acquisitions, and frankly, finally spending some much needed time with their family, friends, traveling a little bit, and working on their passion project. And that's what I have to say on that, unless you have specific questions about it.
Interesting. No, I think you hit that one. All right. Next thing you said that before you left, though, you had to acquire another company, right? Before you left. Tell us about that, because that's a hot thing right now. Ooh, I want to prepare my company to sell. Ooh, I wanted to look as profitable as it can and have such top, gross revenue. And I want it to be all these things. But for you, literally on your way out, how did you almost set the company up for even more success by acquiring another company? So like maybe break it down for us. What was your train of thought in doing that on your way out?
Yeah. So one of the things I'm good at, I'm not good at very many things, but one of the things I am good at is I'm good at identifying top talent. And usually top talent is talent that's also trying to own their own business. It's someone else with an entrepreneur mind, and those people are very hard to get onto the team because they want to do their own thing. They're free thinkers. They're entrepreneurs. They have their own vision. So there was this guy named Chris Reisner, and he owned Avahi Design, which was a digital marketing agency that focused on web page design and development. He actually was in a Facebook group I started, and I did a Amazon gift card giveaway. He ended up winning the Amazon gift card. I met him in person, gave it to him, got to know him a little bit. He said he did web page design development. I said, why don't you design GarrettAtkins.com? Because I really need it. And he told me no. I didn't talk to him for another 6 months. Don't worry, we'll circle back. He ended up making GarrettAtkins.com anyway, but he did not right away. So we actually didn't talk for a little while after we initially met. But I looked at his work and kept an eye on him, and I really wanted him as part of the team as our director of web page design and development. So what I did is I started referring him tons of business. I even told him, I was like, I'm going to become 90% of your business, and you're going to have to come over here anyways. And so what I did is I started referring a ton of web page design and development until I became over 90% of his revenue. And then the day came a couple years later where I said, okay, today's the day. I need to take web page design development in-house. So I either need you to come work for us, and of course, we've had this talk is much longer than I'm making it out to be, but it was basically, I need you to come work for us. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go hire someone to bring this in-house to increase profit margins on websites, which makes sense. And so he said no. He stopped doing web page design and development. He started doing photography. And he did that for, I don't know, 3 to 6 months. And then he called me one day and he's like, hey, I made a huge mistake. I really want to be a part of the team at Vi Media. And Chris is going to hate me for telling this story.
That photography money probably not the same as that website money. I'm sure he did.
The photography money is never the same as that webpage money. But not for all photographers, but for 99% of photographers, usually that's the case. So, so he ended up calling me and Alex Dietrich, my COO. We got on a 3-way call. He told me that he wanted to be part of the team. We asked him a lot of questions, and we had just hired someone. I mean, just hired someone for the role because we were dead serious. And I didn't think he might have thought we were bluffing or something. I'm not sure. And I said, dude, we just hired someone, and now you're going to call me and tell me this? And he's like, yeah, man, I really want to be on the team. I just love the culture. I love being around you guys. I'm sick of working by myself. I don't want to own my own business anymore, at least not right now, even though it's still part of my long-term vision. And of course, that made me hesitant, but I had an idea. So we ended up firing the guy we just hired, and we ended up bringing in Chris Reisner as director of web page design development. About a week in, I do what I always do. I sat him down in my office. I said, so what's your 10 to 15 year goal? Because if it doesn't align, this still isn't going to work out. This could be cool for the next 5 to 10 years. But, I need it to work out super long term. And keep in mind, a lot of this was talked about before AI was that X factor. We don't know how it's going to affect the world quite yet. But we sat down with him, or I sat down with him, and I asked him, what's your 10 to 15 year goal? His answer was the same as it's always been. He wants to own and run the biggest and baddest marketing agency in the world. And I was like, okay, well then I'm going to start grooming you to be CEO. How does that sound? Does that achieve your goal while also achieving mine, which I laid out for him? And he said, yeah, that works. And of course, that was a lot more detailed process, but we did that. I started preparing him to be CEO of Vi Media, and months later, a little bit quicker than we had originally anticipated. Originally, that was going to take a year to a year and a half, but we did it in a matter of 3 to 4 months. We prepared him, and he took over as CEO at Vi Media on October 4th of 2023. And I mean, that was one of the best decisions I've made, and that business is better off for it. They have someone there who lives and breathes digital marketing and agency life. Before, they had someone who was passionate about it, loved it with all my heart. That thing is my baby, but it wasn't my end all be all. It wasn't my end goal. And it is very much so Chris's end game, and he's in it right now. He achieved his dream, and I achieved mine. So.
Okay. All right. Let's keep it rolling. Now, you named 5 different businesses. And even though, because I'm trying to make sure we don't lead the audience. Just in case y'all didn't know, him being owner doesn't mean he's completely oblivious and he just gets a check. He probably still does weekly or bi-weekly check-ins, still does overall.
Every Wednesday.
Yeah, so he still owns it. All right, so you got 5 businesses. How do you balance, even though you got teams and people hired in each of them, how do you balance managing? And I mean, they're not even all the same. You got, I guess you could say Vi and Half Coast are similar, but the video game brand is different and
Yeah, so
requires
I have Vi Media, Half Coast, West County Insulation, St. Louis Demolition, a couple other contracting companies I won't mention right now. And then I have Skylink, which is a private jet aviation company. So it's a jet.
Okay.
It's a private jet brokerage / charter company. So I was really upset during COVID, and I want to bring this up because I think it's kind of cool. And I haven't really got to talk about this business on the podcast yet, but I got really sick during not actually sick. I got sick of people not being able to travel during COVID. The fact that people couldn't hop on a plane for a period of time. I got the vaccine, but whether you like the vaccine, don't like the vaccine, whatever, doesn't really matter to me. What I didn't like is that you weren't able to hop on a plane without getting something that the government wanted you to get. And they didn't let you travel at all for a period of time, if you remember. So I quickly, one of my employees actually ended up splitting off and starting a jet charter company, came back to me, knew about my holding company, and wanted to partner with my holding company, which is where most of my work goes nowadays. And so now we have a hangar down at Spirit St. Louis Airport with a couple planes in there. And we also use a software called Avinode to charter other jets that other people own. So that's the newest part of the business.
That makes the question even more important. You got jet companies, the studio, the video game brand, which is always pumping out content. Because for those of you who've never gamed in your life, there are certain games on each console. You know, Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox, and then PC got its own set of rules and spec. So that different content for all of the systems. Now you got the call center. So there's that piece. Now you got the product. How do you balance it all on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis?
You pick good CEOs. Some of these businesses we started from scratch. Some of these businesses we bought into. I have Mogul Holdings, which is the holding company that manages all my interest in the jet charter company and all of the contracting companies. And that's one holding company. Then I have Mogul Gaming, which manages my interest in all of the gaming brands that I own, which is a lot. And then I have Mogul Media Group, which manages my interest in the call center and the marketing firm. And that's the three pillars of what I do. At each of those companies underneath those holding companies, I have a different CEO, different COO, different team in general that manages that. There's no overlap. There's no employee that, except for my executive assistant and director of administration at Vi Media, besides her, Katie Baker, God bless her heart, except for her.
Shout out to you.
Yeah, Katie. Shout out to her for sure. I'd be homeless if it wasn't for her. So if it wasn't, besides her, there is no overlap. Every team is completely segregated. Some of them all exist within the same building. We're in a few buildings in St. Louis, obviously. Half Coast has its own headquarters. Vi Media has its own headquarters. Two of the many contracting companies have their own headquarters. One thing, what's his name? That famous entrepreneur right now, not Gary Vaynerchuk, but the other one that's big with a beard and he's ripped out of his mind.
Hormozy.
Yeah, Hormozy. One thing he said is, all of his rich friends, he noticed the ones that are CEOs of multiple businesses, they're all broke, while the ones that lead one business really well, those are the ones that are wealthy. And I took that quite seriously whenever I set all this up. I do not try to lead these companies all by myself. I am checking in. Every Wednesday, I meet with the CEO of each of those companies. We sit down for a half hour to an hour, and sometimes it doesn't take place every week because life's busy. And we go over certain numbers. But really, we're going over the intangibles of how the business is running. How do you feel about things? Are we hitting goals? What's the next growth step? At West County Insulation, are we expanding to a new crew? Are we getting a new truck, a new blown-in insulation machine? Really, it's all about move fast and break things, but make sure we're financially sound as we do so. And so, yeah, I manage them by picking really good CEOs and communicating with them often. That and organizational structure is extremely important too, actually. Alex Dietrich, he's my right hand across all businesses. He's my business partner in each one of these. The organizational structure he's created for these, whether it's their communication tools, Google Workplace and Google Drive, our CRMs, how they're all linked together with the call center, because the call center fields all the leads for all these companies. We just have a structure that was built from the ground up to have all of these segregated, but still have a similar backbone that we're very used to working with, if that makes sense from a technology standpoint.
Yeah, don't reinvent the wheel. If we got the right systems, then we just replicate it.
Yes, okay. And we do that.
Now think about what he just said, y'all. Because he's saying a lot, but it's a lot of goodness in there. All right. So essentially, we keep them separate, and we have segregation in accounting. We would call that segregation of duties. I don't have my my fractional CFO is the same one across all 17 companies, or my CEO here is the CEO for all. Like each company has its own leadership structure, different tiers of directors versus team members versus C-suite. So it's about at that point getting out of each business. And I think a big struggle, which you can attest to this because you were once there, so to speak, like it's one thing to be in the business and you're worried about every single thing, the leads, the sales, the marketing, the finances, etc. But as you start to, we'll just say graduate, so to speak, or learn more or do better, now you're like, hey, I have to put trust in other people that I know are qualified. I vetted them to be able to make the correct decisions and trust that if they can't, they will come to me and we will talk through it and keep it moving in the right direction. That, I guess they call it the 80-20 rule, right? They're not going to do it as good as I would have done it, but they're still going to do a great job. So you guys got to...
And eventually they'll do a better job.
And in his case, he feels like I hired him to be better than me, which is a whole different thing, getting into pride. And like he's going out finding, I want A-tier people that I can feel bring something completely different or do it at a higher level than me. So that way when I leave, he's smarter than me anyway. Like I'm not worried because he's smarter than me anyway. So hopefully you guys are gleaning, like, because we hear this all the time. Oh, I want to acquire another business. Oh, I need multiple income streams because that's what so-and-so said. But you have to do it the right way. Be patient. Notice he said this was a long-term play. He started Vibe with the intention of, okay, I know I'm at least have at least one or two other businesses. And then through time, okay, let me not lose focus on Vibe, but now let me start working on this. And notice, like even with the gaming brand, it wasn't just, I came up with it, let's start. No, let me just on the side for a little bit, see what I can turn it into, and then you can make these moves. So there's a lot of good stuff he said.
I can't stress enough that I came up with the idea for using Vi Media to start another business in 2015. I didn't start Vi Media till 2016, and I didn't even get to use it to start another business till 2019. Patience, just extreme patience. And there's only a few ways to go out of business, and two of the main ones are by quitting or borrowing money and defaulting on it. Just don't give up.
And he said it, not me. Now he talked, I got to hit this before we wrap this up. Now he talked about finances and important numbers. Tell the people, because you have multiple companies now in different industries, what are maybe 2 or 3 of the top financial things that you're always paying attention to, regardless of which company it is?
Runway. Always want to know how long you could make it if you had no money coming in. especially right now. I think that's more important now than it ever has been with AI being out there, because we have no idea how the world is going to change. Just 5 days ago, OpenAI released their demo of Sora. It is have you heard of Sora, Cameron? Okay, Sora is a text-to-video prompt system. You type in text, and it makes a video that is almost Avengers Endgame quality video with CGI and everything within a second of anything that you put in prompt-wise.
I did hear about this because a guy said that he got his son to do it, and his son keeps making all these movies and pictures of like animals fighting each other, but it didn't register though.
Oh my God, no, it's anything. They're going to be able to prompt entire movies. So keep in mind that there's a whole industry dedicated to stock video where people go out with cameras, they get video footage of certain things, they put it on a website and then sell it to the consumer. That industry is now gone overnight because of this AI program, because they can literally type in drone overview following car on a dirt trail, and bam, they have that stock footage for a commercial. That industry is literally gone overnight. No one's ever going to pay a stock video website again unless they don't know about Sora, this AI program made by OpenAI. Now, that's not just going to happen with that industry. That's going to happen to as many industries as they can make it happen to web page design and development, to SEO, copywriting. I mean, it's basically already happened to copywriting and journalism. So right now, more than ever, you need to know your runway. That way, you know how long you have to pivot and save the business if you're in a bad position. And you need to know, it's kind of relating the money. You need to know who on your team is expendable, of course. But I mean, that's what you need to know at all times, because that's how you can drop overhead costs extremely quickly if you have to, because it's better to lose a team member than to lose the team and the company. So knowing those tough things, it may sound cold, but that's business reality. And lots of people wouldn't know the answer to that if I asked them right then and there. I know that at any given time across all businesses.
How are you determining who's expendable though? Is that a strictly performance? Is that who has the highest salary? What are you using to determine, like, Cameron is expendable because...
People are not self-starters. People who are not self-starters, people who are not resourceful, people who I can't ask to go and do things and they can just figure it out. Someone who can be asked to go do something and they can figure it out, they're almost invaluable to me. I would rather have that than someone with a PhD who's very good at one thing. I would much rather have someone who can be asked to do a variety of things, go out and learn it. Someone who knows how to use Google or AI to learn something new or figure something out and go out and do it. That is how you can be not expendable. That is what I would say.
Suggested runway amount, I know it's going to vary, but in general, are you a 3 months of expenses guy?
You want to get the 6 months. You want to get the 6 months, even longer if you can do it. I know that's hard. Lots of people aren't running profit margins that allow that in their opinion, but in reality, they just aren't being run financially well.
But then yeah, I can't go buy that. But I can't go buy that Tesla or that G-Wagon to write off, though.
Yeah, well, they're going to have to sell the Tesla and the G-Wagon if they don't get their finances straight. So,
but I'm just doing it on Excel.
Yeah, definitely don't do it. Well, I will say we still have an Excel sheet, but we have an accountant. So, I mean, we have our QuickBooks being taken care of, and definitely invest money in people like Cameron. I will say that.
I didn't pay him to say that.
No, he didn't. He did not get me to say that.
But you can see his reasoning is because why? I need to know these numbers. I need to know runway. Hey, Cameron's been struggling for the past 5 or 6 months. Hey, if money getting tight, who do I need to cut? Because I mean, I've even had some buddies in the agency space where they're like, I think we forget as business owners that our number one focus or allegiance is to the business. And sometimes that means you got to make cuts in order to keep those margins and to keep the business going. And we get so caught up in, but I like this person or whatever the case. But your responsibility is always to the business, which is what you're saying here.
Always. There's people I love on my team, like actually have learned to love because they've been with me for so long. But at the end of the day, business is business. And I do make decisions based on emotion. I'm not just a logical decision maker, and it's bit me in the ass many times. But at the end of the day, it's better to keep everyone else's livelihood in place than it is to lose one person. So, but yeah, those are the things I would say are very important to know at any given time.
All right, let's go rapid fire because I know you're busy, but let's go rapid fire real quick. Top 3 things to do if you want to get your company to the $1 million gross revenue mark.
Always be recruiting. People say always be closing. That's a given. That's a cliche. Always be recruiting good talent because a company is just an organism made of multiple people. And if you have an unhealthy arm, the company's not going to do well as an organism. If you have an unhealthy head, the company's not going to do well as a organism. So always be recruiting and be recruiting people that are as smart as possible. Try to find people smarter than you in at least one or two ways. Save money and get an accountant. Seriously, stop living out of your bank account. Take a salary. Lots of you probably are still cashing checks randomly or swiping the company debit card for personal use. I can't tell you how many times I've had a client that does millions of dollars in revenue and they're still living out of the company account and just screwing themselves so badly in regards to taxes and other things. Stop doing that. Appoint yourself a salary. And let's see here. One more.
I mean, technically that was 3, but I'm here for the 4th one.
Yeah. Sell large accounts. Lots of you have trouble going out there and pitching large dollar large dollar deals. Go out there, and as long as you can bring the heat and you have the value, instead of selling a $2,000 a month package, go out there and pitch a $20,000 a month package because you won't be able to do that all the time until you do it once. And in digital marketing, that's extremely important is to, break the ice on those bigger deals.
Okay, rapid fire. If you had 30 seconds to go back in time and talk to high school version of yourself, what do you go tell him or encourage him to do?
Start a business immediately. I mean, there's the obvious ones, like give them the Powerball numbers, invest in Apple, Tesla, etc. But if I'm trying not to be, too smart about it, I would tell him to start the business immediately and invest into Twitch and live streaming back in 2014. That's what I would say.
Do you think because of AI that college will be necessary for the upcoming generation?
No, I don't. It's not right now. I'm not college educated. I dropped out of community college twice. Now, if you want to be a doctor, a veterinarian, an accountant, you got to go to college, right?
I don't know. I don't even know if accountant.
That's true.
I feel like if it's working on the body, because you got to learn all them blood vessels and muscles and skeletons and that, yes. But I'm willing to argue like lawyers, you could learn more faster by simply getting the work experience because 30% of
agree.
what we learned in college is what we use. The rest of the 70% no longer.
Whatever is required. I always say this, the only reason you need to go to college is if the law requires you to go to college to get a specific job. Unless it's something like that, like a doctor, you do not need to go to college. I imagine either college will become free somehow, which I don't advocate for us paying more in taxes, especially as a business owner. But I think either college will become free, and that's how they'll keep people going, because it's important to the system to have people go to college for many reasons that I won't get into. You probably don't need to go for most jobs. I didn't. And plenty of people I hire do and don't go to college. So
there you go. All right. There was so much. We may have to do a part 2. I'm going to recap this because he dropped so much. Peep this right here. Okay. Owner of more than 5 businesses that we found out. Before he left, he started drilling the importance of hiring people better than you, smarter than you, that can take your company and your goal faster. He emphasized the importance of making sure you're an owner, as in you're not working consistently in the business, but you've hired the right people that you can trust to get the job done, and then you just have to manage the heads of all the different businesses. He talked about making sure you have segregation of duties. Like, we don't need the CEO of company 1 to be the CEO of company 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. No, each one needs to have its own separate leadership, but you can help yourself by, if your systems were great in company 1, we can use some of those same template systems and processes in the other ones. Making sure you have the right company structures, directors, C-level, team members at entry-level positions. The 4 ways to get to $1 million, in his opinion. Always be recruiting people that are as smart as possible. Save money and get an accountant to help you. Take a salary and stop writing yourself random checks. Oh, I love that one. And make sure you learn to go for large accounts. You got to get the first one, which will then open your mind up to go and get others. So, with all that being said, if they want to connect with you, join one of these companies, utilize one of their skills, be under your mentorship, how do they do that? What platforms? How do they get in touch with you?
yeah, you can search for Garrett Atkins on Facebook, and I paid for the little blue check mark on there, so it'll be Garrett Atkins on Facebook. But I'm always on X, formerly Twitter, and you can search Garrett Atkins on X, and I should be the first person to pop up, and that's where I'm at all day, every day.
All right, and then if they're a gamer, how do they find your content so they can come support?
You would want to search Garrett Atkins on X, but the number one, our biggest brand right now is Game Pass Tracker, and that's underneath our holding company, Mogul Gaming. But yeah, Game Pass Tracker on all platforms. We're biggest on X as well. That's where I do most of my stuff. I'm not on Facebook too much nowadays.
Okay, Game Pass Tracker. All right, well, there you go, guys. I told you we're going out here to get the biggest and the best. Garrett, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, this is one of those episodes where you tag your buddy and say, hey, I know you were talking about multiple companies. This is what you need to think about. Make sure you listen to this episode. Tag a friend, share it, comment on it, bump it up, because these are the type of people you need to be listening to, people who have already done it and are currently doing it at a high level. And he's literally telling you his journey. So, Garrett, thank you so much again. Guys, until the next episode, take care of yourselves and stay safe. Peace.
Thank you.